You know, one of the biggest problems with politics and politicians is that there's this tendency to ignore one of the most fundamental aspects of humankind when they deal with lots of things. They do this all the time. It's something that they do very commonly. And I want to get into that and some other things when I talk about this idea of a universal income. And that's what we're going to talk about today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. Hello, I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Wednesday, the 10th of March of 2021. We'll get the administrative stuff out of the way as quickly as we can here. And like I say, what we're going to kind of discuss today is the idea of a universal income and why it's a problematic concern or consideration. And the first thing that I want to say, I've said this any number of times and I'll say it probably till the day I die. One of the biggest problems that you have in humanity is this one ongoing thing that's never going to go away. It's just never going to go away. It's like saying bullying's going to go away. Bullying's never going to go away. You may minimize it, you may reduce it, and that's always something that you aim for, but it's not going to happen. With this other thing, I don't even know that you can aim to reduce it, really. I'm not even sure you can do that. And the thing that I'm talking about is obvious. It's human nature. If you look, as I've said before, again, Rush Limbaugh made a point of pointing out that the Plymouth colony had a bunch of people in it that basically ended up being shiftless when they tried to implement a socialist model in their colony. It didn't work. It didn't work. And one of the reasons that it didn't work is people began to realize whether I work or I don't, I get. And then what happened is, of course, because people didn't work, because there wasn't productivity, because people weren't doing what needed to be done, what ended up happening was there ended up being a dearth, a loss, a lack as a result of that. Well, the same sort of thing applies, in my opinion, on a concept like universal income. That is, everybody gets some minimum amount of money every month. There are actually a couple other things that go along with that. But the point is, when you look at human nature, what happens with a lot of people is if you give them the opportunity, almost always, to get something for nothing, they'll take it. And they don't care who else is affected or how they're affected by what they're doing. Open a food pantry, watch the people flock in. They're driving their Mercedes, they're driving their, nice cars, they're talking on good, wonderful cell phones, they're dressed to the nines, they look better than I do, lots of them, but they're all there at the food pantry. And you start to look at stuff like this, you start to ask yourself, why? And in fact, what's funny is a lot of times the people who probably really are in need are not the ones who are going to get to the food pantry. They're not going to get there. In fact, they may not even know about the food pantry, much less get to it. But the point is, when you start giving people things without them having to work for them, they will take them. They'll take them. And I'm not saying everybody's like that. Look, the last time I was on unemployment, you know what I got? I probably could have gotten food stamps. I could have maybe gotten some sort of housing assistance to help pay my rent and various other things. Probably could have gotten help paying the utilities. I got unemployment insurance. Why did I take unemployment insurance? Because I paid into it with the idea that if I became unemployed, it was going to cover me. I don't like it even yet. Why? Because the government takes that unemployment insurance out of my check. And if anybody's doing that, it really should be, well, frankly, me. Not the government, me, right? That having been said, though, at least for that thing, my intent was to take as little as I possibly could. And I'm here to tell you there are things that the government almost forces people to take by making it so that you get them when you do your taxes and making it so that you can't opt out of various programs of that sort. The idea of a universal income, in one sense I understand, and in one sense I can even make sense of it if you make it so that universal income is some sort of pittance. But let me point something out to you. If you look at what people who are unemployed, who are, living on various government programs, are living on, lots of times you're going to find that they're living on far more than a minimum wage employee. And if you give somebody more than a minimum wage type of benefit of universal income, then quite frankly, you've already done enough, in my view. There's an argument for if there's a family and so forth, means-based, means-tested, whatever you want to call it, benefits. But my point is to say quite simply that when you give people things, many people without concern or consideration will take them. And it doesn't matter whether they need them or not. It doesn't matter whether it makes any sense or not. Again, you can force me to take things, but as a rule, I'm going to do everything I can to keep from taking from the government. Everything I can. The more I can do to keep from taking from the government, I'm going to try and do. You just need to know that. I don't believe in going and getting food stamps and various kinds of welfare programs if you are able to work. I get that you might not be at work at the moment, but the trick is to go and find gainful employment, not to just go and take from the government. The fact of the matter is, as long as human nature is in play in this whole process, you're always going to have people who are going to take advantage. Always. It's always going to happen. And I hate to say this, but in the modern day, it appears that you're not just going to have people that are going to take advantage, but that the majority of people are going to take advantage. Most folks will. And again, that's even when they don't have need. I don't really want another stimulus check. I'm not saying that nobody else should get one, though, quite frankly, I don't think that's a good idea as a rule. But honestly, I'm saying that I really shouldn't. I work for a living. I do okay. I'm not telling you I'm rich. I'm not telling you I would mind having more money. But I do have a problem with the idea that at this point, we're continuing to build to a crescendo of absolute poverty on our country as a result of the fact that we're devaluing our currency by printing more, or worse yet, or I don't know if it's worse yet or not. It's really hard to say which is the worst thing. We're either borrowing money from somebody else, devaluing our currency, or taxing our more affluent citizens. And none of these is a great idea for multiple reasons. And I could go into the reasons, and I could take quite a long time to do so. One of the things that I pointed out before is if you take money from me in taxation, that means that I don't have that money to give to people in need. I'm not saying I don't have any money to give to people in need. I do. But I'm telling you that I have less money to give to people in need. So if the government decides that they're going to give money to people who don't need it, instead of people in need, when I come across somebody in need, I don't have the money to give them because the government is taking the money that they're giving to people from me, or they're borrowing it from other countries, or they're printing it, which is a really bad idea. If you really want to understand, look into quantitative easing and look into what it does to a society's currency, to its money. Money has value, as Dan Bongino said very recently, maybe yesterday, I don't remember now, a couple days ago. Money has value. You work for money because it has value. If money doesn't have value, you going to keep working for it? Probably not, right? And so the point is, if you continue to print money, you reduce the value of the currency that's on the market because more currency comes onto the market. And the result of that is that people's savings, people's earnings become less. And this is one of the points about universal income. As I've said, look, if you give somebody a universal income and it's more than somebody makes for being at a minimum wage, then guess what? They're going to stop working. Why would I care if I'm already making more money on a universal income? But the thing is, whether you think so or not, we need productive people. We need people building. We need people doing. We need people making bread. We need people working cash registers. We need people writing software. We need people doing accounting work. We need lawyers. We need doctors. And we need all kinds of other people. Because if they're not there, those resources cease to exist. So how do I feel about a universal income? In the very best case, it's a pretty bad idea, in my opinion. All right, it is, as I say, Wednesday, the 10th of March of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Thursday, the 11th of March, obviously, of 2021. Thanks to everybody coming on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Again, the subject of today's discussion has been universal income, and tomorrow we will talk about a subject that I've had in my mind and on my heart for a very long time, and it is an abundance of laws. We've just flat got to figure out a way to rein in the legal community. All right, I hope you're having a good day. It's a little cool and a little bit dreary here, but again, we're staying warmer than it has been for quite some time, so I'm certainly not complaining about that. Hope things are going well for you. We're slowly trundling towards that weekend, today being Wednesday, so it won't be long at all before we'll be there. And hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Wednesday, the 10th of March of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, and maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.